Thanks everyone for joining us on this webinar. We're going to be telling you about the NASA Response Mappers. It's a pilot project we are running in partnership with Globe. A little bit about why we're doing this, how to get involved, and hopefully to inspire you to participate. We started NASA Response Mappers pilot at the beginning of August, and it runs through the end of October, so we're right at about the midway point. And because of that, we'll be giving you a status update as well. We are recording this meeting, so if you prefer not to be captured on the recording, you can turn off your camera and mute your microphone. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll be addressing questions at the end, and we can provide slides on request. And this recording will be posted. Globe is going to be posting this recording, so I believe you'll be able to find information from that on their website. Before we get into the content, let's do some introductions. My name is Mary Klebb. I work in the Science Directorate at NASA Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia, and I've been with the Disaster Response Coordination System for almost a year now. John?
Yeah, my name is John Cooney. I'm also at NASA Langley as a Center Response Coordinator for the Disasters Response Coordination System here at NASA Langley. I've been with the program for a little bit over a year now.
And I'm Kristen. I'm another coordinator, but at NASA Ames Research Center, which is out in California. And I've been with the Disasters Response Coordination System for about a year and a half now.
Okay, next slide. So we all know about hurricanes. We are right now at the height of hurricane season. And when a hurricane makes landfall, there can be serious impacts resulting from strong winds, a lot of rainfall, storm surge, which leads to flooding, and also tornadoes. Next slide. What all these effects have in common is they can alter land cover significantly. And by land cover, we can mean natural land cover features such as forest, marshes, or dunes, or also man-made features such as buildings, roads, bridges, power lines, and cropland. The pictures on the right show the same area both before and after Hurricane Sandy. And you can see the impact Hurricane Sandy had here. The land is cut in half, a road is washed out, and there are dramatic changes to the beachfront property on the right-hand side of the picture. Next slide. So what does this have to do with NASA? At NASA, the Disaster Response Coordination System, which John and Kristen and I are a part of, is a program that uses satellite observations of the Earth to create products to help first responders. The satellite data can provide a wider view of an impacted area to increase situational awareness and also help identify areas of greatest impact, which in turn can help first responders make decisions. Next slide. So here's an example of one such product that the DRCS can provide. Here are the pre and post images before and after Hurricane Helene. And then the far right with the red and yellow is a difference plot that shows changes in vegetation, which is most likely due to Hurricane Helene, since that was the only major event in between the pre and post images. And so this will help first responders see where the greatest impacts are and provide situational awareness so they can decide where to focus their attention. Next slide. So while satellite data is very helpful, it's not perfect. And we rely on ground information to verify satellite observations. Also, sometimes satellite data is not very detailed. You might not be able to tell the extent of damage to an individual building. Some satellite instruments cannot see through clouds, or it might be a few days or a week before a satellite passes over an impacted area. And this is when ground observations can help fill in the gaps. Next slide. So this is why we need you. We rely on ground observations to verify the satellite information and also fill in the gaps, which will help first responders identify impacted areas. You can help us by joining the NASA Response Mappers team and taking observations of land cover. This QR code will take you to our team page where you can join the team. And also, we'll have a URL later on in the slide deck where you could do the same thing. Next slide. So now a little bit about the NASA Response Mappers project. It's a pilot project targeting volunteers in 11 states, Puerto Rico, and the US Virgin Islands. These are states or territories most likely to be impacted by a hurricane. When designing the pilot, we decided to focus on hurricanes and the areas most likely impacted in the Southeastern United States. So if you're inside the shaded area, the shaded gray area, when you open up the Globe Observer app, and we'll get to the technical details on how to do that later, you'll see the orange bullseye in the upper right-hand corner and a bell inside of that. And this is what will alert you to the fact that we are calling for observations in this area. If you're not in the region of interest, you can absolutely still participate. All ground observations are useful, and you never know when a change will occur. And even if it's not due to a hurricane, and your picture will provide useful before event information. And while Puerto Rico and the US Virgin Islands are not shown on this map, they are included within this region of interest. Next slide. Okay, and now I'll pass it over to John, and he will tell you a little bit about GLOBE and how to get involved.
Thanks, Mary. So part of our jobs at this as center response coordinators for the NASA Disaster Response Coordination System is to identify existing and ongoing research that's occurring at NASA, which can be used to aid in disaster response efforts. And so through this process, we identified the GLOBE program, which just celebrated their 30th anniversary. It's an international science and education program with participants in 127 countries and collects data using 50 plus scientific protocols, which can then be uploaded to the global database. Globe Observer is the Globe mobile app, and it's used to take images of surroundings and give us data for response efforts potentially for this campaign or pilot, I should say. And there are 4 tools in the app and nearly 300,000 users. So here's just a little bit of a video here that's going to talk about the land cover observations. And this is one of the utilities that we think the GLOBE program can be particularly useful for. Because as Mary mentioned, severe weather can drastically reshape the land around us. And I'm going to go through each of these steps here in a moment. So if you miss anything, don't worry too much about it. While it is ideal to observe about 100 meter by 100 meter area, it's not always feasible. So keep that in mind if you're in an urban environment. We are also interested in seeing change to buildings. So pre-event and post-event imagery of buildings, houses are all interesting as well to us. So the steps that they went through in that video are pretty straightforward. But the first thing you have to do is download the Globe Observer app, which takes about 1 to 2 minutes. I'll hang around on this slide here for a moment for anyone who wants to take a picture of the QR code there. But this app is free on the Apple App Store and Google Play. And the homepage looks like this here on the right, this image there on the right. So when you open the Globe Observer app, you'll see this there on the right. And I'll give you guys, again, a second here to take the picture of a QR code. Next, you just need to create an account, which can be done either on the Globe Observer app or on the web page. I found it personally easier to create one on the web page, but whichever is easier for you. It'll ask you these questions about what best describes you. Most likely, a lot of the people in here are citizen scientists who are interested in taking measurements to help Globe and NASA better understand our environment. But we have partners that are scientists, students, in both international and nationally. It'll ask you questions like where do you reside, as well as your email, and then you'll set up a password. And if you want to create an account, you can go to this link here if you want to do it on the web browser. So this all takes about 3 to 5 minutes to set up your account. And at one point here during these questions, it'll ask you to find a team, and we want you to join a Globe team if possible. It's not necessary to join the team, but it is easier for us to bring in your data if you do so. And our team name is the NASA Response Mappers, and this referral code can also be used to find our particular team as well. And so you can join our team, and all of your images or observations that you post will be on our team page. If you don't join our team, that's perfectly fine. We still can use all of those observations. Your post just wouldn't be on the NASA Response Mappers team page then. So we want to collect ground observations. And so we are looking at the land cover protocol, which is this third one here. And so when you're going to take an observation, you click here within the app. And then when you're first starting, you follow the on-screen instructions to then collect your photos. There's a quick little training that you can do to identify how you want to take the pictures. But it's pretty straightforward. And then you can just, from there, choose an observation site. Ideally, we want you to choose sites that you can revisit at least weekly or monthly. Coastal areas, floodplains, beaches, infrastructure near waterways, locations with older or vulnerable buildings, agricultural fields or wetlands or marshes are very interesting to us and are susceptible to change during a disaster. And so these are mostly for pre-event imagery that we would collect. But if there's something that you've seen changed, even if you haven't taken a picture there prior to a storm occurring, taking a picture after is extremely useful for us. So you got to make sure, though, that you have permission to collect data at that site. We do have a system in place which will blur personally identifiable information. And make sure that this is a site that is likely to experience change during a storm. And make sure that you can observe this site safely. Every measurement, again, is useful, and you can still observe a location after a storm or whenever, even if you can't take the repeat observations at that site. So the fifth step here is to collect that data again. So this is what it looks like. The first question after you hit the land cover is it'll ask you the date and time. Then it'll check this location, which you saw in the video, the guy zooming in and out there. Usually the location is very good accuracy, but in certain situations, the accuracy might be lower due to cell signal and things like that. It'll ask you one of these questions here then in this middle panel. If there's snow or ice on the ground, standing water, which is going to be really useful for us in emergency management situations. If it's muddy or dry ground can also be really useful too for some of the pre-event imagery that we're looking to take. Then you just start taking the pictures. And so first you take pictures up and down, and you have to tilt your phone camera. So I'm going to, on here, you tilt your phone camera horizontally in order to take the picture. So you do it this way and that way for both up and down. And then you finish taking those ones, and then you can take horizontal pictures, which are shown here. And it'll take in each of the 4 cardinal directions: east, south, north, and west. And so what you want to do here is you want to get the east, west. So there'll be like the symbols there within that gray bar you see in the center of the image, as close as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then you can just tap anywhere on your phone screen in order to take the picture. And then once you've taken all 4 of the cardinal directions, then you just click here, done, in the lower right. And this should only take about 2 to 5 minutes. And once you get used to taking the pictures, it takes really no time at all. We also have the option to take a special feature photo. And so there you can take up to 4 of these. And you can see here in the picture, you can take 4 different ones. These don't have to be north, east, south, or west. These can just be something that you found interesting in the area. And you can also provide field notes or capture that specific image, which can provide us with additional context or specific details that you'd like to flag to scientists, such as floods, if there's damage, or if you don't see any change at all, because no change at all can also be really useful for us. If you can also then analyze the photos, and the app will step through a process. If you want to do this, this is completely optional, to go through and do some analysis about how much is dirt and how much of the image is shrubs or whatever. And you can take a classification training to learn how to analyze land cover. But again, this is a completely optional aspect here. If you need help with Globe Observer within the app itself, again, this is the home page. On the app, you can hit this little question mark here in the bottom right. Or if you go to the website, you go under the About tab and you can hit Contact Us. And this will allow you to reach out to the Globe Observer team and answer any questions that you might have or any issues that you might be experiencing. I'm going to pass it now to Kristen to tell you a little bit more about what happens to your data after we collect it.
Yep, thanks, John. So yeah, very excited to share some of what we're working on in order to use this data that you all have either been collecting or are hopefully going to start collecting for us, and how we'll ingest it in our disasters portal to help with response. We have been lucky so far this year that there hasn't been a major hurricane yet to make landfall and cause significant damage in the US. But since we have this backlog of pictures now, we're hoping that if and when that happens, we'll be really prepared with all these pre-event images that we can look at and kind of analyze. So what we have on this first page, which is kind of where you can find the data that you've been taking or plan to take. And so all of these are completely freely available and accessible to anyone, globe user or not. You can go to globe.gov/globe/data. And you can find here, there's 2 different links that we put in here that can help you visualize it. So on the left, this viz.globe shows you all of the pictures either across the whole US or world, or you can zoom in on a specific area to look at. It kind of shows you all the pictures in one spot. So it's kind of cool to see the spatial spread of all the pictures that are out there. But then on the right, if you go specifically to our response mappers page, you can see the pins of where everybody who has taken pictures specifically in the response mappers has been. So we can still access data from other users who maybe haven't signed up for this specific program but might live in a hurricane-prone state to look at their data. But the pins that you see here on the map on the right are from everybody who has opted in to take pictures specifically for NASA response mappers. Next slide, please. And so a little more on how we're planning to use this data. Like I mentioned, we're hoping that if there's a big hurricane this year, we'll be able to use not only this backlog of pictures from before the event, but also any pictures that come afterwards to do some comparison for a lot of our response and recovery efforts. And so we're currently finalizing a dashboard to help us visualize this, again, because there hasn't been a major event. There hasn't been a real rush to get it together, but we are working on pulling it together. And so we have just a screenshot here of an example of what this dashboard might look like that our GIS person, Patrick, has been kind enough to put together for us. And so it's really cool. Kind of in the upper left corner, you can see kind of the stats of in the area that you're zoomed into, how many pictures there have been, how many observations, users, things like that. And then if you zoom in on a specific point, which is where each of the pictures are, you can kind of scroll through. You can see on the upper right there, it's 1 of 50 pictures in this area. You can kind of scroll through and look at all the different photos. So it's pretty cool to see, even in one region, all the different types of places. There's some more beach, some more suburban, kind of in this screenshot already. And so we're really excited to be able to use this and hopefully share this dashboard with emergency managers if there is an event, to help them see kind of the before and after and some of that. Next slide, please. So we wanted to give a little bit of an update since Mary mentioned at the top, we are about halfway through this pilot. So we took some stats yesterday to kind of check in on where we're at. As of yesterday, we were at 135 team members. I saw in the chat that someone just joined, so we might be up to 136 at least. So that's great. And we have about 115 different observations when we last checked. And so if you remember from John's portion, that's 5 or 6 pictures each time. So we are up to over 600 pictures. And we have a pretty good spread in terms of folks in the different geographic areas that we mentioned. So kind of those 11 specific states plus the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. It seems like those states, we have folks in all of them except for Alabama, Louisiana, Tennessee, and then the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. So if you're in any of those places, we would really love to see your observations. So please join, and we would love to see your pictures from those areas. And then we also have some stats here that were provided by Globe. So thanks to them for that, just basically week by week of how many observations we've had. And it's been really cool looking from, say, the beginning of August when we first started to the beginning of September, how much those images have grown each week. And so we're excited to keep people motivated and so happy that folks have, kind of continued to take photos throughout the hurricane season. Next slide, please. So a little note on this with the kind of repeat observations. Remember that if there is a hurricane or big event, we are not asking you and will never ask you to go outside during dangerous or immediately following dangerous conditions. The idea of taking these routine observations where you're going out hopefully once a week to the same spot, you can still help us collect this data, but by doing these repeat observations rather than just going out when something bad happens, we can keep ourselves safe and still have this really nice log of what the land cover has looked like over the past several weeks or months. Next slide, please. So we have a little call to action here. If you haven't already signed up, we have some reasons that you should consider joining us and kind of how this can be used. So your observations, especially if you're just heading outside where you live, these are unique and new and also really specific to you. So if you want to see your specific community or home represented in this data, the best way to do that is by going outside and start taking some pictures. In terms of the data itself, when we have all these land cover images on the ground, that's really great to help us figure out if satellite maps are accurate at your location. So like Mary shared, the resolution of the satellite isn't always what we need it to be. So if you're, in one big satellite pixel where maybe there's damage in some parts of it, not damage in some other parts, this is really helpful for us to be able to go in after a disaster and look at it. This is also really helpful if there's a delay in acquiring satellite data. So either if there's some kind of issue or especially with clouds. So if there's a lot of cloud cover after a hurricane, as there normally is, the image satellites can't really take pictures, they'll just get the clouds. So that's really great for us to have, before we get satellite images in, some of these photos on the ground to help us figure out where the damage is and where to prioritize and kind of get that information out to emergency managers. And then obviously, if we do end up having a hurricane event this season, it's being able to see that damage to roads, bridges, other structures, extent of flooding, damage to cropland and other areas, things like that will all be really powerful, especially having this backlog of photos from August to now of, when it was in a non-damaged state and kind of seeing how it's changed will be really impactful for us. And like I've mentioned, we're hoping that this can be a resource for first responders to basically better help people who are affected by a disaster to prioritize where they're going to go and give aid and things like that. Next slide, please. So we have just a couple links here for you guys. If you're curious to hear more about the NASA Disasters Program, we are at disasters.nasa.gov. And finally, I think this was on a few slides earlier, but if you want to join the NASA Response Mappers team, John mentioned how to do this in the app, but if you find it easier to do it on the webpage, it's globe.gov/web/NASA Response Mappers. And so please help us help you by collecting some observations and getting involved this hurricane season. I'll leave this up for a second in case people need to get the URL down, and then we can go over to the questions slide. I saw that there was one question in the chat so far, which I will repeat out loud just for the sake of people haven't had their eyes on the chat, if anyone has the same question. But if there's any other questions that have come up during this, please put them in the chat and I'll read them out, and then we can go over to either Mary or Jack to answer them. Okay, I guess we can stay on this slide so people can get the URL down. The question that I saw came from John earlier, and thanks to our Globe folks for chiming in and answering. They asked, can we join your team if we're already using Globe Observer? And the answer is yes, you can join, as far as I know, an unlimited number of teams in the app. And so Heather put the instructions. If you're in the app, you go to the settings, which is the gear icon in the lower right corner, and then scroll down to Globe Teams and then join a team, and you should be able to find NASA Response Mappers. If you follow the link here on this page too, you should be able to get to it in the web if you prefer to use the web over the app. So I think that's the only question. Oh, Holly is adding, you don't need to be logged into the website to join the team. It's the same username and password used in the app. Thanks for that, Holly. Good clarification. Do we have any other questions? Feel free to jump in and put them in the chat.
I have a question. First, there's a couple in the chat that I think you should maybe want to address, and then I'll ask mine.
Oh, thanks. Okay, yeah. So I see we have a question from Tina. Will the results of the pictures be published? Maybe Mary, do you want to talk a little bit about how the disasters program will publish those and use them?
Well, the pictures are available on the Globe website after they have been through the review process and made sure that any identifying information is blurred out. They'll be on the Globe website. And then the DRCS will ingest these photos into our portal for use if and when there is a disaster. So once we go live with the portal, that bit will be publicly available as well, but we're just not quite there yet.
Yeah, but all images are publicly available through Globe as is for right now.
Great, thanks both. We also have another question asking about if we recently added Hawaii since there was recent hurricane activity there, I'm assuming. And so the Globe folks can speak to the geofence, but I want to add right off the bat that even if you're not in the states that we mentioned or Puerto Rico and the US Virgin Islands, like for instance, I'm in California, but because I've joined the NASA Response Mappers team in the Globe app, even though I'm way outside of the hurricane kind of region that they've set there, my observations still show up on that map. So if you look at the map that we had on the previous slides, there's a little dot in California that's me showing up. So if you're in an area, whether it's hurricane prone or not, you are free to join our team and add your observations, and maybe they'll have some relevance. And I think it'll still be cool to look at either way. Holly, did you want to ask something?
Yeah, I think you alluded to this a little bit, but I'm curious. This has been a really light hurricane season, fortunately, and we haven't had any storms that have impacted the area of interest for you. Are there ways for you to test the use of the photos otherwise, or are there things, types of data that people can be collecting to help you ensure that this pilot is successful?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if John or Mary wants to jump in, please do. I think that for us, a big part of getting kind of this resource ready is just understanding how we on the disaster side actually ingest the pictures from Globe and how we can kind of compare differences, even if it's not a major disaster. If you take a picture a week later, there might be some small differences in the picture. And so I think that's some of the initial work that we're doing on our side to kind of basically just understand how to use this resource, that even if we don't have a major hurricane this year, fingers crossed, we'll still be able to get some use out of learning how to use this tool. Mary or Jeff, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. Yeah, I can add something. We're currently engaging with different partners who we think might be end users of the product. There's a lot of different ways we sort of envision them potentially using it. But what ends up being most useful for them is still uncertain. In regards to a test case, it probably would have been ideal to have something like that with if we had a program like this in previous disasters. And we have to make sure that there's people taking photos in a specific area. We haven't set up any sort of like simulation of how that might be used at this point, but it would be smart of us to try and do something like that with some of these end users.
I can add one more thing if nobody has any more questions.
Yeah, please do.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was saying please go for it. Yeah.
Okay. I thought somebody was jumping in with a question. So some of you may have noticed we just started doing this new thing that I think is so exciting. My colleagues at NASA Langley Research Center have created a system that will go and take your land cover observation and go find the satellite images that align with that observation that were taken close in time to that observation, and then email you your observation and the satellite images. And in the email, you get the land cover classification from the Terra Modis sensor. That's an annual product. And then you also get the Landsat image closest in time to when you took the picture. And then the Sentinel-2, which is very similar to Landsat. They're both They both have sensors that measure visible light, and so we give you the visible band, so it looks like a picture, even though they collect more than just what our eyes can see. But that's what we give to you is what it would look like to you. It's really cool, and you can go into the app itself, and there's in the landcover tool, when you get in there, you see on the bottom a little icon that looks like a satellite. You can tap on that and it will tell you when the satellite is going to be overhead. And so you can take your pictures when the satellite is there so that it matches up, which is super exciting. Good reasons to take it while the satellite's there. Great reasons to take it while it's not. For example, today where I live, it's very cloudy, and so it would be a perfect day to go take an observation to show what's on the ground when you can't see it from space. So cool thing. If that's something you want to learn more about, we do have a little short Q&A session tomorrow at noon Eastern time, and I'll put the URL for it in the chat.
Thanks so much, Holly. It's been really fun getting those emails of kind of the matching satellite data and how it's used. I think that's been really fun and cool to see. I do see we have one more new question. So someone's noticing that El Paso, Texas is in the shaded zone that we showed. So in our kind of geofence, as Globe calls it, they're saying we do encounter remnants from hurricanes from the Pacific side from Mexico. How are you looking at that aspect from those post-hurricane weather with desert environments? My first initial response to that is the desert environments are actually kind of difficult sometimes for our satellites to image. Kind of the sandy layers can be kind of difficult with the satellite. The reflectance that they measure can get confused and think that it's snow or ice or other things like that. We've had some issues with that recently with some of the satellite measurements. So I would be super excited to have some ground images of, sandier, more desert-like terrain. It's a really good validation for us then if something does happen, or if we're just looking at satellite data regardless to see, okay, is this area actually just sand, or is there something else going on there that maybe our kind of the processing is flagging as something different. So I'd be really excited, even if it's not a direct impact of a hurricane, like you're mentioning more of the remnants of other hurricanes and things like that. I think it's still super powerful for us to look at in comparison with the satellites to better understand what's going on.
Yeah, there's a newer tool that's called synthetic aperture radar that has some issues in sandier environments. And we just actually launched a new satellite called NISAR. And so these images, whether they're part of the disaster's event or not, can be really helpful to helping validate some of these newer satellite techniques, as well as the new NISAR instrument.
Cool. Well, seeing no other questions, we can probably wrap up here. But you can reach out to any of us by email if anything comes up later. I think our contact info should be somewhere on the site for the NASA response mappers. But yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. And again, if anything comes up, please reach out.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
You.